Well, if we're gonna find any ghosts, we better split up.
You're listening to Never Split Up, a horror movie podcast.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Never Split Up podcast. My name's Nolan. Alongside, as always, is Anthony, and this is episode 62, where we are covering MaXXXine, released in 2024. How you doing today, Ant? What's going on?
I'm doing good. I'm upset that Halloween's over, but it's always Halloween in this house, so I'm still doing good.
Yes, definitely by your background. I can confirm. I've been to Anthony's house. It's his entire house looks like that pretty much. So it's always Halloween there. But yes, Halloween season is over. We are in November now. We took a little bit of a week break, but we're back with a big one, a new release from this year. And joining us, just like last time when we covered Pearl, is Phil from Phil at the Movies. Mr. Phil Walsh. How you doing, Phil?
I'm doing great, guys. Thank you for having me back on the show, and I'm excited to be talking about MaXXXine.
Yeah, we decided, I think, like a week ago that we were gonna run this episode, and I told Ant, I said we got to get Phil on because I don't think you were on for X, but you did came on for Pearl because Pearl was a very special movie for you. So
Absolutely.
I said, you know what,
Yeah.
let's bring him on, and then let's do a review of MaXXXine. We're also gonna have a little bonus content at the end. We're gonna do our ranking of the trilogy now that we've covered all three movies. So that's gonna be fun. I can't wait to hear your guys' rankings and really just your overall thoughts. I'm kind of going in blind. I haven't really seen much of you guys' thoughts on this movie. And I know this movie is pretty divisive in terms of this trilogy. So I'm excited. I'm kind of, not to spoil too much, but I'm kind of in the middle on this. I don't really know quite how to rank it yet. So I wanted to cover this first and then do the rankings later, because who knows? One of you might, sway me. So... Okay, Phil, before we get started, do you want to give a plug at your podcast, kind of tell everybody what it's all about and where they can find it?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Well, again, thank you guys for having me back on the show. Always enjoy talking movies with you guys. Every Friday I host a weekly podcast, Phil at the Movies, where I talk about my love of movies, current films, favorite films, etc. Really kicking up the YouTube portion as well, so I would appreciate a like and subscribe. Going to be doing some live shows in the future, as well as more interactive content. And again, as I say, each and every week, it is for the love of movies.
Yes, and you cover kind of cover all the bases. I know you love the horror genre, so I love checking out your horror episodes. Shout out to your most recent episode you covered with Anthony.
That's right.
I believe was H2O, correct?
Halloween 5.
H2O.
Halloween 5.
Oh, I'm sorry, Halloween 5. Yeah. H2O was last year.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I was getting the two confused.
That's okay.
Yeah, so check that out. You can hear Anthony. I've been on his show. Will's a wonder. I'm sorry, not Will. Phil is a wonderful host, and he does a wonderful job over there. So thanks again, Phil, for joining us.
Absolutely, thank you, guys.
Okay, before we get into it, Anthony, do you want to disclose the winner of our Never Split Up poll from Halloween 2018?
Yeah, so guys, make sure you guys go check out our Halloween 2018 episode. That was a lot of fun, and it's an important sequel to actually all three of us. But Nolan did come out on top for that Never Split Up poll. He chose Ray doing his Ray shenanigans, and it came out on top. It beat Oscar, and I actually agree because that would have been my moment if I won the poll from the previous episode. So yeah, Nolan won, so you'll get to go first in this episode for our Never Split Up moment.
Shout out to Ray. Shout out to Toby Huss, who is in MaXXXine. He makes a little cameo as the coroner. That was a fun little cameo when I first saw it. I was like, especially because we had just covered 2018, so it was fresh in my mind.
Even planned
like, oh my god, it's Ray. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So shout out to him, and shout out to everyone who voted in the polls. As always, thank you so much. And you can find our future polls on our social media. But for now, let's get into MaXXXine. I'm really eager to hear everyone's overall thoughts. And everything. And why don't we kick it off? Phil, since you're our guest, why don't we hear from you first? Actually, Ant, did you want to just go over like the cast and crew first before we get into
Yeah,
it?
I'll do that. Yeah, so
Okay.
MaXXXine came out this year, July of 2024. Directed and written obviously by Ty West. And you guys, the plot is MaXXXine's pretty much in Hollywood in the 80s, and there is someone coming after her and killing people that are related to her. But the cast is the most stacked cast of the trilogy. It's obviously Mia Goth is the ultimate, but you also have Kevin Bacon in a fun role. You have Giancarlo Esposito. You have Elizabeth Debicki. You have Sophie Thatcher in a nice little quick cameo. Her friend, I forget what's her friend's name. I really liked him in the movie too. I can't. Moses Sumney, he's in this. You have the two cops are in this too. I love Michelle Monaghan is in this as well. What's the guy cop's name? I can't remember his name. He's in a bunch of movies. I love him though. He's hilarious.
Bobby.
Bobby
Cannavale.
Cannavale.
Bobby Cannavale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's just a little bit of the cast. So it's super stacked. And this movie came out and it got good reviews, but it is the most divisive among fans and critics of the trilogy. But it's also the highest grossing of the trilogy. And I'm excited to get into it because I have a feeling that the episode might be divisive. We all might have different opinions on this, so it's going to be cool. I like that. I love it. Love it when we have different opinions.
Yeah, this
amen to
this
that.
for sure. Yeah, because we covered X. That was the first one we covered, and I pretty much agreed on X. We were pretty much kumbaya. We brought Phil on for Pearl. Again, pretty much agreed. I think Ant, you were a little bit lower than Phil and I, but
Yeah.
we pretty much were singing its praises. So I think this might be. I don't want to say divisive, but we might have some straying opinions on this episode, especially with three voices. So, okay, why don't we kick it off with Phil? Why don't you go ahead and just kind of give us, your overall thoughts and how you feel about this movie before we really dive into it?
Yeah, so as everyone probably remembers from the Pearl episode, I'm a big fan of that film. I think that is a modern horror masterpiece. And I know that word gets thrown around a lot, but I think it really does apply to a film like Pearl, just on a technical and also a story level, as well as an acting level. And Maya Goth, she kills it. I mean, I wanted to start first with her. She owns this entire trilogy. I mean, from X to Pearl, then to MaXXXine, sort of playing two different characters for the first two films. It's a tour de force. She is not the problem with this film. For me, this movie was much anticipated, but it ultimately was a massive letdown. And it's not a letdown in terms of production value or even what I think Ty West was going for. Like, I don't think it's necessarily an inferior film, as sometimes is the case with a third entry in a series, but it's lacking for me. The story is uneven. It sort of leans a little too much into the cliche, and I mean, we can certainly get into the spoilers with regards to the twist at the end later on, but there was no X factor, shall we say, that both X and Pearl had respectively. This just felt sort of like, let's throw everything at the kitchen sink. We've got the 80s aesthetic, which is cool, but again, it just sort of felt like expensive window dressing, and the story was severely undercooked, and it left me feeling just let down and disappointed because I had high hopes for this, particularly. I mean, again, we're fans of horror, and to have three quality films, I mean, that's no easy task. And so I was sort of, crossing my fingers thinking, okay, we're going to really have a perfect run here of a trilogy. But alas, it's one of these films where I can see where maybe they were going with something, again, sort of bleeding in the kind of the satanic panic of the 80s a little bit, and then sort of tying back to the whole idea of the snuff film that was, of course, there in the original film. but I don't know. It just feels like there was just a bunch of ideas and nothing really worked, and it's just sort of a pretty to look at, but nothing inside.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So,
Okay, I think this is our first time Phil's been on for couple times now. This is going to be the most negative Phil has been on a film on our
Don't worry,
podcast.
Phil. I just took care of that the other week on this podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had some opinions these recent episodes. So.
I'll pick up the baton.
Okay,
today.
all right. I mean, that was,
yeah.
You really put your stamp on that. Man. Wow.
Really,
okay.
nothing to say for.
All right. Let's kick it over to Ant, because I want to hear Ant's thoughts, and then I'll go last.
Okay. I dug the hell out of MaXXXine. I really, really enjoy this movie. I thought it was a really cool throwback to like the sleazy like video nasties of the 80s. It's not perfect though. It does have problems, I will agree. I do think it has the strongest first act of the entire trilogy, but I also think it has the weakest third act of the entire trilogy. But I know people have their most issues with the third act, and it is a little cheesy and, over the top, but I also think that's what Ty West is going for, because that's what the 80s movies are all about, being like ridiculous and over the top. So it's not a pass, but I understand what he was going for. MaXXXine, Mia Goth, I think she finally fully came into like a different like fucking I don't give fucks final girl, and I just, I love a badass bitch like that. She was awesome. The supporting cast is great. Kevin Bacon's awesome. He's getting his flowers, but I really want to highlight Elizabeth Debicki. She was great as the director. I think she really, really, really showed up, and she was fun. I just think that I like that it was a crime thriller, and it just took advantage of everything about the 80s, the music, the vibes, the settings, and it brought MaXXXine into exactly how I think she would be after what she went through in X. And I also appreciated that it did deal with some of her PTSD and throwing it back to Pearl. There's a couple scenes that really had me on edge, specifically one when she's in a makeup chair and getting a head cast. I love what they did to throw back to Pearl and how she affected her from X. But yeah, overall, I think this does have some problems. It's not exactly what I expected from the trailer, but it delivers the goods for me. And I think that Mia Goth I'm just in love with her after watching this movie. I'm in love with her so much. She's a badass. Some of her lines, we'll get into it when we get into the movie, but I'm like, how can you not love this movie? She's fucking kicking ass and taking names. So I really had fun with this one. I get the critiques, but I walked out and I was like, fuck yeah. Trilogy's 3 for 3 in my book. So what about you, Nolan?
Okay, yeah, okay. Wow, this is going to be fun. I as suspected, I'm kind of in the middle. I kind of found myself nodding my head to both of you guys. First of all, before I begin, can we just give a round of applause for Ty West and just kind of whether you like the 3 movies or not, the fact that he was able to make 2 movies at once, get those greenlit, and then make a solid horror trilogy all within a couple years. And pump those out. I mean, thank you, Ty West, for doing. And
they're also unique
for
and
us.
Different. So
they're all unique. Yeah, exactly. So that is awesome. I found myself agreeing with both you guys. I really want to, Ant. You said that it works for you. I really, as we get into this movie, I guess we'll kind of dive into like what exactly that is, because I think Phil was a little bit more detailed in his criticisms than you were in your praises. So we'll go through. But my overall thoughts real quick is this was a movie. I don't really. What the hell? I have my bullet points and I want to talk about the movie, but like overall thoughts, I'm very confused. I think I agree with Phil. This movie looks beautiful. The characters, I agree with you, Anthony, that Elizabeth Debicki was a standout for me. Her character, Elizabeth Bender, the director, every scene she was in she was a scene stealer, and I was just like hanging on every word. She was awesome. She was so cool. And then the other supporting cast, I mean, Giancarlo Esposito was awesome.
Oh, he's a badass.
Kevin Bacon, you have the detectives. But therein lies kind of the issues and where I agree with Phil, where it seems like Ty West was just kind of throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what would stick. I think he has a lot of ideas in this movie, and none of them are fully realized. And it's a shame because you get glimpses of them, and what you do get is really well done technically and visually, and the acting was real. But I wanted more. I feel like this movie should have been at least another half hour to fully realize all the ideas he had. So I really think he could have benefited from honing it in and kind of focusing on maybe one or two of these elements. I mean, you have so much going on. You just off the top of my head, you have, like you said, Aunt Maxine's PTSD from X, and they touch on it, and it's good. But I wanted more of it. I wanted them to dive more into that. They have,
No, really?
Her going and getting the lead role in Puritan 2. I wanted to see more, maybe like behind the scenes making of that movie. You didn't get any of that. You have the fact that she's a porn star, and I believe when they marketed this movie, that was like a big thing. I mean, it's MaXXXine with the triple X is the movie, so you didn't really get a whole lot of the porn star elements. The Night Stalker, I thought, was just a choice. I mean, they just kind of, I knew what they were doing thematically, but that was never really in the movie. It was just kind of background noise. The PI, Kevin Bacon, I forget his name, the PI, John LeBeau or something, right?
Fucking hilarious.
John, yeah. But
John. Yeah, you're right.
He was great, but then he was great until he wasn't, and then he wasn't in the movie, and it was just like, oh, that was kind of wasted. The detectives are maybe like the biggest example.
Really?
They're kind of just like
hilarious.
background characters, and then all of a sudden they're in like the final act, and they're like, we're supposed to care about these people. It's just, there was a lot going on, and it was a lot to process. I'm glad I watched this a second time right before this episode, because I was able to digest more of it and like it a bit more the second time. But I do feel like it does suffer from all of those ideas. But with all that being said, and it seems like I'm pretty negative on this movie, I have a good time watching this movie. I think it's a good movie. I'm not overall negative on it. I think Mia Goth, like both of you guys said, is just a tour de force. I think she's fully realized in this movie, and she just gives it her all. And I will say that I guess I would agree the third act is pretty weak, but her in the third act, especially a couple of those ending scenes, I mean, they were
I love it.
It was just a showcase at that point. Kind of similar to Pearl, how it was just kind of at the end of Pearl, just showcasing Mia Goth. I mean, it's like really like just put it on a tape and send it to all the auditions, because that's all you need. So yeah, I'm excited to get into this. I really feel like I'm in the middle on this, and wow,
Guys,
man, Phil is it seems so negative, and Ant really had a good time with it. So this is going to be fun.
I will just want to say, because we didn't touch on it, I think a lot of people were upset about the killer reveal, like how it was so anticlimactic. I'm like, if anyone watched X, and like I knew from the opening scene of this movie like who the killer was in, like I knew right. I'm like, it's obvious. The parental vibe throughout Pearl, X, and MaXXXine, it's kind of obvious once you saw the opening scene of this movie was where it was going. Yeah. So I don't really buy that as a critique. Wasn't really concerned about who the killer was. I was really just concerned about MaXXXine's journey.
Okay, because that. But
I knew once I watched the opening
to me
scene,
that makes the reveal even greater, because we knew it right off the bat. I mean,
we
knew it. That's another thing. They never really realized the whole daddy of it all. Like, we could have seen the dad throughout the movie, stalking MaXXXine and stuff, but they left it as this big reveal, and it's like, okay, we already knew. You don't need to make it a big reveal. You could have highlighted him more throughout the movie.
I thought it was hilarious how hokey he was, though, in the end. I liked it. I thought his hokiness. Guys, this is very Scream 3. It's a divisive third act in a trilogy.
Yeah.
Just like Scream 3 is.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And I mean, this is not on that level, but I do have a good time. That movie's all-timer. But yeah, let's get into this. This is fun.
Okay, I mean, Phil, you went first. Do you have any, any comments about what Ant said or what I said? Do you have any, rebuttals?
No, I mean, I would just say I don't have an issue with the fact that her father was the killer. I mean, like, it's there in the beginning. It's there if you watch X, you can see where this is going. again, it's the execution of it for me. I think we needed to. There was a real potential to expand his character outside of just a kind of a hammy villain. Like it almost felt like, and this is not necessarily the best comparison, but there was almost a Scooby Doo quality to it at the end, just because. And maybe it was the way he chose to play the character. It was kind of jarring from what we had been seeing before. I mean, not that the film isn't like, campy at moments or sort of, take some liberties, but, you look at Pearl, you look at X, there's a thematic sort of seriousness that runs through it. And then it's like, like I half expect him to be like, twirling a mustache and like, putting on a top, like it felt a little out of place. And so, on top of the fact, okay, all right, we're going to get the parent, shocker of all shockers. It's like, could we maybe have just had a little bit something more? And again, maybe if he was more, serious or not as hokey, I probably could have had a better time with that aspect. But it's just so, again, there's no surprise. We know it's coming. You'd have to be blind not to see it. And so like when it does arrive, it's like, okay, well, give me something more. Give me some reason that all the eggs have been put in this basket, because it just felt kind of weightless. Oh, okay, the puritanical father angle. Like, all right, well, okay, thanks. Like, I mean, like, I needed something more, I think, to justify it, because, I mean, not that, it's not a clever angle to explore, but I just felt like, especially given where we had been with the previous two films, particularly once we get to the third acts, this just felt like a complete drop off in just overall quality.
I know what you're saying, like execution, because I will say thematically it fits, and I don't have a problem with it thematically. MaXXXine kind of shedding her weight at the end, and kind of sprouting her wings. I mean, that's
So
all
good.
great, but I kind of understand what you're saying, Phil. Again, I'm kind of on the fence on it, but once you get the reveal, it's no longer a horror movie. I mean, he's not scary at all.
No.
I mean, you never think that MaXXXine is really in any danger. I mean, you have this guy and all of
She's got
his
this on lock.
Yeah, you have this guy and you have all of his followers. They're around like this pool, and it's just very. I think that's pretty. I actually got a laugh out of that Scooby Doo vibes. That's pretty funny.
Like,
but yeah, I kind of agree. Yeah,
Like Pearl at the end of X, this is like a 90-year-old woman with a shotgun. That in many ways should be hilarious, and yet it's not. Like that's fucking terrifying. Like, you know what I mean? But again, I think it's just the overall execution. Whereas,
okay,
this could have been like, you could have made something darker and more sinister. Instead, it's just like, again, after school special vibes or something.
No, I hear you both on that, but I almost feel like if you watch any 80s movies and you get to like the end, like any 80s thriller, like erotic thriller reveal, it's almost like the villain is like twirling his mustache and camping it up. So I know that Ty West was throwing it back and like paying respect to that. Not saying that you're not valid, but that's definitely the vibe. He did that on purpose. He played it up like that on purpose for sure.
Oh,
yeah.
I think even Phil would agree.
Yeah.
I don't think that was an accident.
No,
I think it was definitely intentional.
Everything
Yeah.
here there was a point to it.
Mhm.
And it's like, it's either it worked for you or
Yeah.
it didn't, but I'm like, I know what he's going for, and like I'm laughing and I'm smiling, and I'm watching MaXXXine just fucking own the shit out of it. So yeah. I'm a Final Girl guy, so I'm gonna like MaXXXine in this movie, and I like this movie, so.
Well, let's start there then. Let's get into it. MaXXXine. I mean, my second viewing of this, I really leaned into MaXXXine and kind of watching her and Mia Goth and her arc as a final girl. I mean, you get her in X, you now have her in 2 movies, and I think she is a fucking badass final girl. I mean, she's right up there with the modern final girls. I mean, throughout this movie, she's got so many cool lines. She always knows how to handle herself. She is a certified badass. What did you think of her? Just not Mia Goth's performance, but just the character of MaXXXine, and where does it kind of stand in terms of like modern final girls for you guys?
I mean, I can't speak on saying who's my favorite modern final girl. You know how I am with that. Like that's gonna give me anxiety. But she
not
is
necessarily a rank,
there.
just kind of how you feel.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
she'll stick with me. And in this movie, I love that she has her sass, and I like that she's unapologetically out for herself, whether that's morally correct or not. I think that's unique in a final girl, and I think that that's what differentiates MaXXXine from the other final girl. She doesn't give a shit. Her friends are her coworkers are dead. She's like, not my problem. I'm not speaking up on it. I don't give a shit. I'm looking out for myself. I gotta go make a horror movie. I'm like, yeah, girl, get your bag. You know, you're not gonna accept a life you don't deserve. Like, get that shit. So I like that. I mean, she has some. Even the opening scene. Like, first of all, we'll talk about the opening, but her monologue, her audition scene. I mean, Mia Goth, give her an Oscar just for that opening monologue. But I love when she walks out and she's like, y'all might as well go home because I fucking nailed that. My theater clapped at that scene before the MaXXXine title card drop. I love it. And then I also love when we'll get to the alley. That's one of my favorite scenes is the alley scene. But she's like, do you know what happened to the last person who tried to kill me? I crushed their fucking head. And I'm like, that's my girl. I was on, after that, I was like, she's the final girl. She's my final girl of this movie. But I think that as the movie goes, like I said, that's all happens in the first act, and that's my favorite act of the movie. As the movie goes on, you kind of have so many characters, you have to take a break from MaXXXine, and that's when I think the movie gets a little sloppy, when we're not always by her side. And I do think that I like that he had a great ensemble cast, but I think that if it just really focused on MaXXXine and maybe like a couple less supporting characters, she could have really evolved into the ultimate final girl, the modern final girl. But because there's so much going on and so many characters, she gets lost in the shuffle in the middle act, and then she brings it back in the third act. But overall, I mean, Mia Goth and MaXXXine, she's a badass. And I mean, even with Kevin Bacon, when she just fucking beats the shit out of him in the car, and she's like, yo, stay the fuck away from me. I think she's unique, and I think that Mia Goth, she's the perfect fit for this role. So I actually think that her evolution from X to MaXXXine makes so much sense, and I love her. She's such a badass in this movie. She's the reason why I love this movie.
Okay, what about you, Phil?
As I said at the start, Mia Goth is not the problem with this film. She owns every scene that she's in. I agree with you, Anthony. I think that is another mistake the movie makes when we sort of sidetrack with the other characters. The beauty of, I think, both Pearl and X is, even though there is probably more so with X, an ensemble quality, it's never sort of overdoing it. Like,
it's contained.
Yeah, we know who our lead character is, be it Pearl or MaXXXine, respectively. And I felt in this one, I wanted to keep seeing her go. I wanted to see more of this journey that she's on. And
I would agree with that.
And it's like, again, it's that scene in the alleyway. I agree with that. That's a wonderful scene. Her whole audition execution. That's just chef's kiss. I mean, again, she is probably my favorite part of the entire film. Just her entire character and her arc, if you will. And it is a great sort of transition from where we leave her in X to where we find her here. You know, I did think to myself upon watching it a second time, I almost wish there was another movie in between, just to kind of see like the immediate aftermath of what happened with MaXXXine. Because I mean, this is what, like 1983, 84?
It's 85.
Okay,
it's 85,
so I mean, we're talking about like a good chunk.
Almost a decade,
yeah. So I almost feel like there's another mini movie in there somewhere where, we could have seen even more, development. I mean, again, not that it's not, incomplete, but it just, her character is so fascinating. And I kind of feel like at some points this was almost like a tease, if you will. Like there was more backstory or exposition that could have been explored. I mean, not saying that it doesn't. I mean, the whole, reckoning with Pearl and that legacy, I thought was done quite well. But again, I kept thinking, I want to see more of this. I want it, like I God love Kevin Bacon, but like, I don't care about I don't care about the other detectives. I want to see more of MaXXXine. Like I want to see where she is going. And I think that was probably another mistake the movie made, was sort of like just when the momentum kind of kicked up, it's like, all right, we're going to pump the brakes here and go focus on something else.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I do struggle with this movie. Again, I said Ty West has so many ideas, and I do think that this movie could have been split into two, actually. And I think maybe this could have been the in the middle movie where she's arriving to Hollywood and she hasn't quite made it yet. They could have just focused on that, and then did a third movie where the dad is the payoff when she's older and she's already made it and she's making movies. I mean, that could have been a cool angle. But yeah, kind of what I was saying before. I love her as a final girl just because of her performance. I mean, Mia Goth's performance, whether or not you agree with the story or not, I mean, she's already going to be an icon. So that's just kind of, yeah, she just takes it over the top. But her arc, I wanted more of the arc, and I wish they kind of got rid of maybe one or two of these side plots. While I do think they were interesting because they didn't really go anywhere and they kind of vanished just to bring back Mia Goth for the third act again. It kind of was like, well, what was the point in that to begin with? So yeah, I almost wish I said before it could have been a longer movie, but maybe breaking it up into two movies would have been best, but then we wouldn't have our nice tight little trilogy. So who knows? I mean, yes. I don't know.
You take the good with the bad.
So the first act, the first act is your favorite. Tell us why
I think it's the strongest.
You love the first act so much and what works for you so much.
I mean, because we're pulled in immediately. I mean, the first act is all MaXXXine. I mean, I love the opening shot. I mean, when she's in that freaking garage auditioning. First of all, the way it's shot when the garage is slowly opening. Oh, I mean, of course, MaXXXine, they're like, oh, do you know your lines? She's like, shut the fuck up, I know my lines. And it's just right there, you're just like, oh, pulled right back in. I love her so much. And her delivery, I mean, she's auditioning for a cheesy, 80s horror sequel, and that's like an Oscar level scene that she's delivering. It's so good. I just love after she cheers up, she's like, you got that? We're good? And then it sets the tone. They're like, okay, can we see your fucking breasts? And she's like, yeah, sure. And then she just goes out and just tells every other person that audition, go the fuck home, I killed that shit, peace. So it pulls me in, and I'm just like, if this is what I'm getting the entire movie, this might be my favorite of the trilogy. But I think the level of energy from the first act, because they are tackling so many different things, but it's all from MaXXXine's perspective. You get that, you get to see her and her best friend from the video store, which I think that relationship is really special, and I think that his death scene, and later in the movie when we see the cops show his dead body, we get that humanity side, because MaXXXine's hard and stone cold, but that one scene, you see her break down, so you're like, okay, there's a real person in there with emotion, so I think that was important. But the first act is all just about, MaXXXine wanting to be a horror movie star. MaXXXine in the alleyway showing, she's learned and she doesn't trust anybody and she will fucking crush a guy's nuts with her heels and just walk away and let him bleed to death. And then you have this scene after that when she's getting masked after she gets the role. She's getting the mask over her face and you can see the PTSD when Pearl literally comes as lathering herself all over. I think that was the creepiest and most uncomfortable scene in the movie for me. I got claustrophobic watching that. But I just think the first act is so good because you're seeing all these different aspects of her life in Hollywood, and it's building up that character. And I think that if the whole movie was like that, it would be a lot of people's, favorite or second favorite of the trilogy. But after the first act focusing on MaXXXine, you transition to the, 20 different supporting characters in the movie. But I just think the first act is so perfect, and it is 100% my favorite first act of the trilogy. It's firing on all cylinders. The 80s vibe, MaXXXine, you're getting the hints about the Night Stalker. I will agree, the Night Stalker is pretty much only brought up in name. There's no follow-through with that. So I agree that, it was pretty much a wasted, aspect of the story that could have been cool. Is it the Night Stalker or is it someone just after MaXXXine? It's kind of obvious, right away that it's someone targeting MaXXXine, and the Night Stalker is just, something that's shouted out that, oh, did you hear about these killings? So there was no follow-through with that, but the first act is awesome because it's MaXXXine overload, and it's discovering and, investigating every single aspect of her life. So I think the first act is just, it's hands down the best of the trilogy for me.
This is kind of why I feel like I'm so confused on this movie, because I agree with you, and I think if they would have stuck with that formula for the whole movie, I think it would have benefited. But I also like some of the other things he did. I just wish they were fleshed out more. So again, I go back to Elizabeth Debicki is probably my favorite supporting.
She's wonderful in it.
Favorite supporting actor in this movie. It would have been cool to get more of that and to explore kind of, women in Hollywood in the 80s and stuff. And we get, Lily Collins plays, what's her name? Molly Bennett from the first Puritan movie. And we kind of get that dynamic. I love that scene where where Maxine meets Molly and, Elizabeth Debicki is smearing the blood. And
I love Elizabeth Debicki.
Yeah, that line.
But you don't think that I thought she had some really heartfelt, like the moments that she had with Maxine, like I felt those. I thought those are special. So you think that you wanted more of that? I thought there was sprinkled in just enough. Like it was good with her.
Not that I needed more moments, but I just, again, it was a side plot that wasn't fleshed out. I mean, they didn't even get to start filming until the last scene of the movie, and you didn't even really see it. You just saw.
Okay.
I mean, but that's fine if you don't do that. But then focus on something else. But he doesn't focus on any one thing. Is kind of what I'm trying to say, and that was just one example. So I do agree with you that if they would have stuck with the formula from the first act, that it could have been a less divisive movie and a more solid movie. But I kind of wish that he did kind of run with a couple of these other ideas and kind of really flesh them out. But he just I feel like he just had too many in his brain and he had to get them all out there.
He has the 80s kinetic energy. He's trying to fire it all in the movie. So it's everywhere.
He's doing lines in the trailer. I know. I get it. Yeah.
And first of all, I love we have a final girl is unapologetic. Like, yeah, I'm fucking going to snort cocaine. Like, throughout the whole movie.
with their SAG card at the end. Yeah.
Well, and you see she had there's so many throwbacks to X and Pearl in this movie, like little Easter eggs, which I do appreciate. They're not hit over your head.
Oh no, it's subtle.
It's cool. Yeah.
Phil, any thoughts?
First act, Phil. What do you think about the first act?
No, I would agree with you. I think the tone of the first act is near perfect. I think if they had stuck with that sort of vibe, I think the movie might have been salvageable. I mean, again, it's sort of, it's like pick, who knows? Like, sort of you're playing the what if game. Yeah. No, but I do agree. There was a very cool vibe at the start of the film. I mean, again, I'm a sucker for anything 80s centric, and this is, I mean, it wears its references and homages on the sleeves. I mean, even like, Kevin Bacon's character, I mean, it's not necessarily an 80s reference, but like the fact that he's, dressed up like, Jack Nicholson's character from Chinatown. I mean, that's just again, Ty West knows what he's doing. And again, I have to applaud. He clearly wasn't just winging it here. But yeah, no, the opening, I think that's a case of, I think more of that would have been beneficial. Like, again, that we talked about it briefly, but like the scene in the alleyway where, she's just, the ultimate badass. Like, I mean, that's
face down ass
like,
up.
Again, like that.
Oh my God.
No, like that, that was in keeping with where we found Maxine in the first film. And again, like that those are cool ideas. There's some energy there. Like, I wanted to see that carry on into the second and third, and it just goes away. Like, it's just almost like, again, I think you've said it perfectly, Nolan. Like, there's just so many ideas bouncing around. It's just like either just pick one or like reshuffle the deck, because like you can't have it both ways as much as we want it, but you can't.
It's funny. I will say about this movie, I really do think it's going to be very rewatchable for me, because it has all of these fun moments. There are really fun highs in this movie, and like scenes and moments. You talked about her friend who owns the video store. His death scene was like super fun.
We have to talk about
super
that,
creative. The slit at the back of the neck. I can't remember the last time I saw that been done like that. So very creative.
Very
like there are moments like that where I'm like,
very 80s.
I have a smile on my face, and it's really fun. But the through line of it all is there really is no through line, and it's very jumbled, and as a movie itself, it's very scrambled. It's like a puzzle that's just scrambled up, and you have to kind of make sense of it. And there's little spots here and there that I really do enjoy. So I really do think that this movie, again, you both said it. I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
We get the 80s vibes. I mean, he nails the aesthetic completely, especially in that first act. You have her go into, she's on Hollywood Boulevard and she's working her 5,000 jobs that she's doing. And it kind of, I think that was a way to kind of showcase like the 80s, the Hollywood in the 80s, all of her different little side gigs that she has. So that was really well done. But yeah, I kind of agree with both of you. It's so funny how I'm kind of flip-flopping on this.
And when you name drop Jamie Lee Curtis in your first act, you're also going to get brownie points.
Well, no, I will give you that. No, that's again, that's a chef's kiss moment right there.
Something we can all agree on.
All praise the Scream Queen.
And MaXXXine fucking Minx.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Her line delivery.
Oh no,
was
there's
iconic.
Unmatched.
Iconic. Yeah. It's almost like they made like Mia Goth sat down with Ty West and they made the first two films just so she can play MaXXXine in this third film. I mean, she really is fully realized in this film, and you can just tell she's having a blast with it. I mean, we go back to that opening sequence, Ant, that you were talking about where she's reading her lines. I love when actors can kind of play a character playing a different character, and it's kind of like the whole inception of it all. I mean, that always blows my mind how actors can pull that off, because it's not Mia Goth reading lines, it's Mia Goth playing MaXXXine
reading lines,
someone else reading lines, and it's like
someone from the Puritan too. It's just she's so
and
good.
She nails it. It's mind-boggling to me. It's so good, so good.
I mean, just as a sidebar, I mean, she's a great actress. I mean, the fact that she hasn't been nominated, I mean, not to like go off on that tangent, but like seriously, like she deserves all the flowers and recognition, because she's a force. There's just no other way to say it. She is a force.
I think with Pearl, people that aren't heavily invested in the horror genre, I can understand why she wasn't nominated for something like Pearl.
Yeah.
While I think it was a masterclass, and I think we all agree it was a masterclass, it was a little bit more subtle, because it was played a little bit straighter. But in MaXXXine, I mean, it's again just fully realized. I really think that she should get at least considered for some of these awards. I'm not a big award season guy, because I know
I hate award shows.
It's all politics and BS.
But she's a standout.
For
the entire year. I mean, she's definitely top 3 for me in terms of horror standouts, and that's praise, because this has been
it's been a great year
for horror. A lot of great performances.
I mean, she should have won the Oscar for Pearl, in my opinion. Like that's crazy how she didn't even. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But a movie like Pearl, you see what I'm saying? Like I kind of understand why it wasn't.
There's a standoffish.
I don't. I really don't. It's they shut it out.
The whole stylistic of it, I don't know.
Her monologue.
Oh no, I agree with you, Anthony.
The dinner scene should have friggin' just like Toni Collette's monologue at her.
Oh no, again, like the Academy is allergic for the most part to these kind of movies and roles, but I mean that's a whole other discussion for another day.
Yeah.
No, for sure. But I like how her we have the X MaXXXine, and I think that her mini evolution to MaXXXine. It fits so well when you because I rewatched what I did once I got the 4K. I watched X and then MaXXXine back to back, and I do think she's the girl from the last shot of X, the entire movie of MaXXXine. She's like, shh, praise the fucking Lord. Like that's all she is in MaXXXine, is the badass from the final shot in X. And I just think that the way she just I don't know, the transition from that movie to this is so good. Because in the beginning of X, she's kind of nervous and scared.
Right.
And then you just get that she's by the end, she's like, you killed everybody. Fuck you. I'm going to crush your fucking head in. And that's who she is, all of MaXXXine. So I don't know. I love watching them back to back.
Yeah, I kind of wish I did that. I didn't have time to watch X, but that's going to be fun to do, especially those two movies.
And now that you've mentioned that, I'm going to need to do that.
You definitely need to do that.
Yeah, I mean, then the callbacks to X are there in this movie.
Even Pearl too.
They're in there in Pearl, yeah, for sure. So I mean, you could definitely. This is just a nice, tight trilogy. who knows? I mean, if they're gonna take it somewhere else, but I like it as it is. I think it's great. I want to talk about some of the other stuff going on. I mean, we could talk about Mia Goth for 2 hours and MaXXXine, but what was kind of other stuff that you wanted to highlight? What about Kevin Bacon? I mean, let's talk about his character. I
So
loved
good.
him, and I even loved his death. I loved what they did with that.
Oh my
That was
God.
perfect.
Wait.
Everyone
Did
in
you
the
think
audience.
he was gonna get killed in that scene, or they think he was just gonna threaten him? Because I was like in shock that they actually like crushed him.
Well, that's what I was kind of getting at. It's not that I didn't think he was going to get killed, because I thought he was a goner, but you're sitting there thinking for sure they're going to stop this thing and they're going to have a discussion with him, and they're going to try to play an angle, and then nope, they don't even hesitate. No. She's like so ruthless.
I will say the one scene that I'll give you guys. I think it's a wasted scene when it's cool because we get the psycho house, but it's like a stupid like throwback to, I don't like Westerns anyway, but it's like a Western throwback when he chases her through like the sets. I don't like that sequence. I'm like, we could have spent some more time with, I don't know, a different scene. I didn't like the scene when he chased her through the set. I don't know. I don't know why I didn't like it, but it didn't work for me. It was too much.
It does fit with the movie tonally because he is this like goofy, PI.
It's like, hey, partner.
Right.
It was never like
but
intense
I was
or anything.
But on the other flip side, I love how she like brought him into the bar and she like put her, her get up on and she like brought him back to the junker. I'm like, oh, this again, that's because it's MaXXXine's in control, not him. I don't like how she was like scared of him when he chased her through the set. I like when she's in control.
Right.
I think the scene when she like, roped him into coming in the junker, I'm like, oh, this is my girl. She's like dancing sexy and hot, and then he comes in the back, I'm like, you're screwed, dude. You're fucking screwed. But yeah, I thought it was cool that because I'm like, I hope he's not like around for the third act. I want to dispatch him so we can get to the, I want to find out who the killer is and get to that shenanigan. So I'm happy that because he was over the top. So I'm like, when he went, Kevin Bacon did good.
Oh yeah,
he did his job. He was a scene stealer. But I was ready for him to exit stage when he did as well.
Yeah, I'm with you there because, I mean, you're right. He's working with what's there on the page. Like again, it's not like he's
great.
Yeah, it's not like he's out of place. But his character did stay, I think, a little bit too long. I was kind of I was surprised, and I wasn't surprised that he met his end that way, because I mean, like, probably was like, okay, they'll probably figure some, like, there'll be some intervention, ex machina, something will happen, but of course, no fucks were given, and that's all they wrote for Kevin. But I mean, he's clearly having a ball in this movie, and again, I'm always a fan whenever people who started out in the genre return to it. That's he's a legend. That's again, I have massive respect for him on that front. And again, just sort of like the detective he's playing, he's goofy, he's over the top. You've got your Chinatown wardrobe and homages, with J.J. Gillis. I mean, so like all that I thought was nicely handled. But he definitely stayed, I think, a little bit past his welcome.
I feel like
do you think she was too harsh in like having him killed? Do you guys think that like she went overboard, MaXXXine? Because I don't. Because he knew that Leon was killed, like that her dad killed Leon after that and all that. So what do you? I don't think she. I think she was justified.
It's fitting with MaXXXine's character. Like,
yeah, I was just gonna say that. I don't think it's just that. Like, I personally like. If I'm talking me, like, yeah, it's over. But like for her character, it made complete sense. Yeah,
but he was an asshole.
Oh no, I mean,
he was
beyond despicable. But
we gotta check on Ant. What's going on?
I mean, the poor innocent Leon just slaughtered, and he's like, "Oh, okay." he deserved it.
I thought it was. I actually thought it was the best part of his entire character was when he died.
It was
especially
fitting.
when you get
it was fitting.
Damn,
it was fitting. Yeah,
especially when you get Elizabeth Bender. You have her speech right beforehand where she's like, "Figure your shit out."
Like that.
Right.
We're gonna come back on Monday. Basically shed this weight over the weekend and come ready to fucking go on Monday. So you get that speech, and MaXXXine's like, "Say no more." So then
She's like, I intend to, bitch.
Yeah, I intend to. Yeah, exactly. So I love how she just kind of was like, she called up her agent. And she's like, all right, we need to get rid of this guy first. Let's just get rid of him, and then I'll face my dad on my own. Like, I don't need this middleman muddying up the waters. Let's just kind of clean our hands with him. So I do think that's my favorite part of his character was that scene when he died. But I feel like this was just like a character that Ty West was, drunk in a bar with Kevin Bacon, and they kind of just like drew this up, and it made the final cut of the movie. Like, I don't think this character was necessary, and I think they could have honed in on other aspects of the story, and his character could have just been like notes left on her car and stuff. It didn't have to be a full character. So
that's a good point.
It's just another example of kind of, he just has all these ideas, and while they're fun on the surface, because they're in the movie, it kind of takes away from other stuff that could have been more, fleshed out.
Yeah, that's a good point, Nolan.
Yeah.
I think it's important that her dad had like a henchman, like doing the, the sleazy Hollywood, because he roundabouts, because he's from a small town, obviously, her dad, so he needed some sleazy guy in Hollywood to like, investigate and pull that scene. But I get your point that, maybe he didn't need to be like, again, like I would have gotten rid of that whole chase scene. Like I would have maybe like narrowed his role down a little bit more, but it's Kevin Bacon, so I also get what Ty West was
especially because he has the biggest role of all of these little cameos in the movie. I mean, he's lucky if you get 2 scenes in this movie, if you're a star in this movie, and then all of a sudden Kevin Bacon and this ridiculous character is in like half the movie. It's like, wait, what's going on here?
What about what's her face? She's like a big oh my god, I'm showing my age. The musician Halsey.
Yeah.
I wanted to see like maybe a chase scene with her death rather than just like cut, like you see her crying and then it cuts to black. So I get that critique.
I do think that was creepy. I thought that was a pretty cool,
it was creepy.
Like the videotape and stuff. I think that would have been fine if then the second victim, maybe like Lily Collins, got like a chase scene. I've heard she plays Molly Bennett.
I love how her head just falls down the stairs.
Yeah, and she's doing the scream that she's known for in Puritan. Yeah, it's funny.
I think Halsey did. I don't know. Like I don't follow, but I thought Halsey did pretty good in her like 2 scenes. Like I thought she was pretty good in her crying
30 seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine.
But I wanted a little more. I'm like, okay, she's in the movie. Let's see her.
Exactly.
Again, that's
it's kind of
another part of my issue. It's like, okay, it's all these random, sort of. It feels like random scenes. Like, all right, let's
like,
take
okay,
a little time.
we'll let you in the movie too. Like, come on,
right? That's what. In many ways, it's
which is, I mean, that's what he's and get it, but that's what he's going for. But I do agree. Like, I wanted to see maybe a little more, and I think some people had critiques that it's not a full-on slasher movie like the trailer made it out to be, but I didn't really have a problem with that. I knew it was just going to be a MaXXXine, journey. It's an 80s thriller. So people think, because we already had a slasher with X, so I didn't need it again.
No, I mean, he does different, each one, Pearl is much more of a psychological horror.
I knew this was like a sleazy sleazy 80s throwback,
Yeah, I didn't feel misled or anything that it was not a quote-unquote slasher.
I do wish she did lean into the thriller aspect a little bit more. It did feel a little too hokey and fun, which I do. I like a fun horror movie, but I kind of what Phil said, it kind of doesn't when you... I haven't watched these back to back to back, so I guess I really can't comment on it.
I recommend you both do it.
I will, but as I'm thinking about all 3 movies, it does kind of feel a little out of place with the 3 of them.
It is the most different. It is the most... I don't want to say it's
but I
don't
jarring,
know.
That's what makes it.
I wouldn't
cool.
say that though.
It's so. It's every movie is so different. I just think that Pearl and X executed their premises so perfectly.
That's it.
I mean, X is a grindhouse movie, throwback movie. Pearl with the fucked up Wizard of Oz. I mean, everything was done so perfect, and MaXXXine has a lot of flaws, but that doesn't take away that it's a fun movie. So that's kind of why I'm in the middle on this.
Well, I know what your last place movie is for both of you in this trilogy. Jeez.
Really? Because I don't. I'm still kind of. I'm still teetering. Because
let's go. Go back to Leon's death scene. That was really. I thought that was really well executed. I think that was one of the most stylistic death scenes of the whole trilogy. Mm-hmm. Leon's death scene.
Yeah,
I really loved it.
Yeah, I loved like the whole '80s, videotape store with the neon and stuff. And the music, was cool. The score in the background was really cool. Yeah, I really liked it.
And just the way he was stabbed and like the score in that scene too. I thought it was really well done, and it was it was operatic, but that's the point. I thought
And
it was
it
really
kept
well
cutting
done.
to
Like
Maxine reading her lines,
Yeah,
highlighting her
right,
lines,
yeah.
and the lines kind of
very 80. That's very
No,
80.
it did.
You
It
nailed that.
No, that was a perfect capstone of pick any 80s film.
If we had like one or two more death scenes like that, I also think a lot of more people would appreciate it in the movie.
If
that
you
was
take
that was great.
that
It was.
sequence and the whole movie is like that, it'd be my favorite probably in the trilogy for sure. Yeah, I mean that was just beautifully done.
Like that,
sure.
that could have been like a mini short, like a student, like a short film. But it was just perfectly executed.
And I felt for him too, even though he didn't have much screen time. Like, oh man, he's just a good guy looking out for Maxine. Like that's her friend. I don't know. I thought it was really well executed.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you there for sure. Yeah, I thought it was really well done.
And again, very 80s.
Perfectly 80s. The way it was, like Nolan said, the way it was like cut
Yeah.
and shot and edited. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
like that.
Oh,
was,
again,
like,
Ty
giving me,
West understood the assignment. Yeah, I'll give him that.
Oh yeah.
He understood.
Well, okay, so let's move along. Let's get towards the third act of the movie. The first time I watched this
divisive
movie,
aspect of the movie.
I was just kind of felt a little deflated. I was just like, this is the end, the cap to the trilogy. The second time around, I kind of, now that I knew what I was getting into, I was able to kind of embrace it a little more. I still have issues with it. The biggest issue for me was the detectives at the end, kind of like saving the day
Hilarious.
and becoming, they kind of sacrificed themselves. I mean, they were so their characters, and they're good actors.
Oh,
I'm not. It's not anything that they did, but they were just, every time they were on screen, it's just like, okay, can we just move along? I really didn't care for them at all. So
I'm with
the
you.
fact that they were so heavily, they influenced the ending so much, and they helped Maxine so much. I feel like they could have handled that differently. It could have been someone that she knew more personally, could have helped her in the mansion, whether like Lily Collins was still alive, or even her agent, like Giancarlo Esposito's character, could have followed her or something. I feel like the detectives were so out of place with this intimate story between Maxine and her father, and they kind of just show up. That's probably why they did the whole Night Stalker angle, because they had to kind of fit these detectives in somehow. But I just feel like it didn't work for me.
Yeah, we just
That's interesting.
I'm with you, Nolan. I didn't care about these characters. Like when they were on screen, I was so like, all right, let's get back to Maxine here. And like again, they're there at the end, and they're meant to be these like knights in shining armor coming to help Maxine. And just again, I didn't feel like there was any purpose to them. And again, they're in the film, not a lot, but they're in it enough that to justify it, like I just, it wasn't there. Like, I mean, this is not a great comparison, but like because I'm in the Halloween mood, like Dr. Loomis in the original Halloween film has like, I don't know, 10 minutes of screen time, maybe a little bit more, and yet because the character is so well written, and because the character has both a purpose and agency, when he shows up at the end of that film to rescue Laurie, who he has never met, mind you, and she's never met him, you feel that's like oh my God, yes, the good guy has shown up. There was like, that's what I think, like maybe there was an attempt for here, but like it just falls apart because we're not invested in these two characters. They're there. I think you said it best. They're there because we have the whole Night Stalker angle, and that justifies their quote unquote existence. But it's like, all right, they're here, I guess. Great.
It almost would have been better if they showed up at the end and then they just got blown away.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
That would have been funny.
They kind of do though.
Yeah, they're not really. I mean, they
a lot of emphasis on
they
them
down
being
the
with her
dad.
for a
I mean, they
long
take
time.
him out. They
Yeah.
do take him out. I mean, he's still alive, but Maxine doesn't really
Yeah.
get that. She gets the kill shot, but it would have been a cool sequence of her and maybe like a friend of hers, like
Lily
being
Collins
chased
or
by
something.
him or something. Yeah, it was just kind of like, really, these guys.
I actually feel the flip, like the inverse of that than you, because I think it's important that Maxine doesn't have someone she knows with her. I think it's important that she takes the stand on her own with her dad at the end. And I think the detectives are there because that's a cliche 80s trope of the cheesy detectives. And I would say that they're not looking out for her. They're looking out for themselves because they want to catch the killer. So I actually disagree. I don't think they really have her back as much as you guys think they do. I think they're just trying to catch the killer.
I disagree with that. I think they're good cops. They came up pretty
They're good cops.
straight-laced.
No, they're good cops, but they're not following her there to protect her. They're following her there to catch the killer.
I think they are, but I'm not. But just because they're there to catch the killer doesn't mean they want to like.
No,
she's
obviously they're not gonna
expendable.
be like, okay, Maxine, you died,
Yeah.
but they're not there for her best interests first and foremost. They're there to catch who's doing these killings.
Well, they don't know. I mean, to their credit, they're
following her. They've
tailing
been
her because they
following
think
her.
maybe she's involved
Right.
somehow. So yeah, I agree with you there. But I do think at the end there, I mean, there was like what 15, 20 people around in that backyard, and they came out and
shoot at, yeah.
you know risked their lives to catch this guy and to save Maxine. So I do think it is both. I mean, I don't think they thought Maxine was like expendable.
And- No, but I don't think they went there like saying, "Oh, Maxine needs to get out of this alive." They're like,
But
"No,
that's-
we need to get our."
That's
guy."
even more of a
And-
cause why I don't like it. That because it's
I think
now
it's-
it's not
oh,
even
really? I
really
think it's
intimate
just
to
hilarious.
Maxine.
And I don't think
You know,
I think it is intimate to Max. I think it. I'm disagreeing. I think it's all focused on Maxine, the finale.
it is until they show up, and then
And I
it's
think
like
it's
this
whole-
big
by the way, I think
shootout.
it's-
I
It
don't
stalls
know.
it. It stalls the momentum.
Yeah,
And I think the Michelle Monaghan's death scene is fucking hilarious when she comes
Yeah.
back with her eyes and she just like fucking tumbles down the hill. I mean, that was to me like I was howling.
I gotta
at that.
chuckle.
I don't know.
I'll
They
give
worked
you. I
for
gotta
me.
chuckle out of that. There was.
But I think
Yeah.
it was important. I wouldn't have want Maxine to go there with a friend. I wanted Maxine to go there by herself and go up that, whatever you want to call that escalator thing that ships her up to the hill.
Mhm.
I don't think she needed anyone else to be there with her. She needed to face her dad and the villain by herself.
I agree.
wouldn't have
No,
not
I agree with
wanted
that. Yeah.
that, yeah.
I mean,
I
It's
just
her
think if
story.
someone was going to show up, like really going to have the detectives show up, and then they're going to down the dad, like Maxine's not even going to get to chase her dad. I mean, she has the intimate moment with the helicopter swirling overhead, which was
That's
beautifully done.
Oh, yeah.
Beautifully done.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm not taking away from that scene, but
Cosign.
it just
Say
like
it
you
with me
said,
now.
Phil,
Oh my
it
God,
kind of
it's so
just
good.
stalls it for me, and it kind of
Yeah.
is like, okay, yeah, wow, they're really going to get all the
I
credit.
thought it was like fucking. This is '80s like charm right there when their death scenes. I thought that was funny.
Yeah. I guess it just didn't work. So why do you think it's the weakest? It's weaker than, let's say, the first act. So what doesn't work for you, Anthony?
Hmm.
Well, I would say I didn't say it's the weakest third act of the trilogy, is what I said.
Okay.
So it's obvious. I mean, X to me, honestly, the strongest third act of the trilogy is probably Pearl, which is funny for me to say because
I mean,
it's not as rewatchable.
I'm gonna not disagree with you there. Yeah.
Oh,
Not
but I
as
would say
rewatchable. I
we're-
didn't hear that part. I disagree.
Oh
with you.
no,
Never mind.
I can't co-sign that.
I can't. Yeah.
But I think because the Maxine third act, it's convoluted. But I think once you get to the point of just Maxine and her dad, you get so much satisfying. At least I do. Like I'm in Maxine's shoe, and she's like, "Say it with me now." It's all full circle to the beginning of X. I will not accept a life I do not deserve. You gave me what I've been looking for. Divine intervention just like fucking blows his head off. I don't know. I think that the lead up to that moment, we talked about it. You guys had so many issues with it. So I understand that. I have fun with it because I know that Ty West is going for 80s cheese and over the topness. Would I have preferred just Maxine and her dad one-on-one the whole time? Yes, 100%. Had them do a brawl and had them do a whole back and forth verbal match like Sydney does with Roman in Scream 3. And that was to me powerful. Just them two one-on-one. So I get that, but I think once you get to that final moment, that's when, again, to me, the third act picks up the pace. But the third act's sloppy up to that point. But I think the movie ends on a high note, which to me is important. Even after that, when she goes back to her trailer, she's like, "You're a fucking movie star," and she's made it, and she's there. So that's the whole point of this movie, is that Maxine's a badass. She overcame everything, and she's a star. But I do think the lead up to that in the third act is, the weakest third act of the trilogy. I mean, in X, you have pretty much X. The third act is all the deaths in X, so I'm gonna love that, as a slasher fan. And Pearl, the third act, is just Pearl becoming a villain and her monologue and her, going after Mitz. I mean, that you're not going to beat the third act of Pearl because that's just a character moment that it's unmatched in the trilogy. But Maxine, you do have the sloppiness to get to the big moment. So I will agree with people who weren't into the third act. But I appreciate it once you got to the point where it's just MaXXXine and her dad. The stuff to get there, to me, is fun. But I can see, like, you guys had a bunch of problems with it. I had fun with it, but it didn't ruin it. Once you got to that final, her and him, and she was like, yo, I gotta kill you, I loved it. It's just to get there.
I thought the scene itself was beautifully shot and beautifully done, and how it kind of just does the flash forward and then it cuts back. I thought all of that was good.
Did you like that?
I did like that. I thought it was good because it kind of threw me off. I didn't know, like, is this a dream sequence, you know? And then, because then she obviously kills him, and then we get the 1 month later, so we see that she's not dead and all that. So I did like how they were kind of playing with you there. They were kind of toying with you. But it's funny you brought up Scream 3. I kind of have similar issues with both of these endings. It's the
Don't you talk about my Scream 3.
Oh, I can't wait. That's our next Scream movie that we're covering. I cannot wait.
Oh.
But it kind of feels the same, how they kind of, her dad in this movie is not a character until the very end of the movie, and then we're supposed to care about this intimate relationship. It's kind of similar why I don't really love Roman. I think the actor is great at the end, but you don't really have him as a character until the very end. It's I see what they were trying to do, but I wish they leaned more into MaXXXine being fully realized as a person and shedding this past life, instead of trying to do that on top of this whole dad angle and highlighting their relationship. I wish they kind of did one or the other. And if they went with the dad angle, that's kind of why I said earlier I wish he was in more of the movie, so we get a little bit more of a, you know, emotional scene. It wasn't really that emotional to me, because I'm like, okay, we literally just found out who this guy was 5 minutes ago, and now they're saying the lines together, and, you know, it's all okay. Like,
I love that.
Yeah.
That they said the lines together.
I do like how he kind of accepted his fate, and he kind of gave a little smirk before he said the line. He's just like, oh, that's my girl, you know? That was kind of funny.
Badass.
The scene itself was great, but it's just the weight of
it's
it.
It's the execution.
So you wanted the dad to be visible and, like, known throughout the movie, that he was the one up to no good, is what you're saying.
Something, yeah. That maybe.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. If they're gonna go that angle, you know, they kind of rode the line of multiple different tracks. So if they're gonna go that track, yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Okay. No, I'm just curious. That's interesting to me.
We don't
I never
need
thought about it like
Kevin
that.
Bacon. Like, you know, like, he was great.
I mean, it's Kevin
Always
Bacon,
need Kevin
dude.
Bacon, but
no, I know.
Really, you know.
Yeah. No, you could have streamlined it. I mean,
I can understand that side, though.
because you sort of look at, you know, compare it to X, for example. Like, yeah, we don't see Pearl, you know, start going crazy till about, you know, end of the first act, beginning of the second. But, like, she's there. She's a presence in that entire film. And I think that could have been something, if you wanted to sort of create an interesting parallel with her father, because, again, to sort of piggyback with the ending of X, that to me has such an emotional and effective measure with just sort of the, I mean, not just the physical showdown between MaXXXine and Pearl, but just sort of their, you know, philosophical one as well. And I kind of felt like it's there with her and her dad, but we're kind of cheated in a way that we weren't with, you know, the ending in the first film.
Yeah, and then on top of it, Pearl gets her own movie. So
right,
I mean,
well, yeah, that's right.
They really double down on that relationship. So yeah, of course. I mean, the father's not going to get his own movie.
No,
so
I don't think so.
This is kind of all we got for him, and, you know,
I wouldn't want that, though.
No, God, no. It's there's nothing there. No, please, we've been punished enough. No.
I think it was. I would not have wanted him sprinkled that throughout the movie. I think it was fine to leave him to the end.
Okay,
you got that hint in X how he was being a preacher. I think it would have been, even for you guys, even more hokey if he was sprinkled out throughout the movie. From what you're saying for the other stuff.
Yeah, I kind of side with the whole, you know, lean into MaXXXine. I mean, this whole movie should have really lean into MaXXXine at the end. I mean, we don't need that whole thing with the detectives and with her emotional thing with her father. I mean,
the detectives.
It's irrelevant. Irrelevant. I mean, the movie is called MaXXXine. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Remember that. You know, lean into that.
I mean, it ends with her being. I mean, she is the star of the movie.
So, what did you think of? We'll go to Phil first. Though, like the very end of the movie, how it wraps up her character in this trilogy. What did you think of the very end of this film?
I mean, again, I've been very harsh on this movie tonight, so I'll try to rein myself in a little bit. I mean, I think, as I said at the beginning, my God, she is not the problem with this film, and her arc that we see in X ultimately making its conclusion here. Like, my problems aside, I'm satisfied with MaXXXine. I like the journey that she goes on. I think she becomes a well-rounded and credible final girl, definitely in worthy contention of the sort of the modern label, if you will. I like that I like that there isn't kind of like either a cheat or some kind of like bittersweet ending. I mean, I guess you could say there was a little bit because of the stuff with her dad, but like, she makes it more or less. Like, she is MaXXXine fucking Minx. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that is made crystal clear by the end of this film. And I think that's, my problems aside, I that to me is satisfying. Like, it does live up to where we leave her at the end of the first film to ultimately where we find her by the time the credits roll.
I think I got your answer, but I'll ask this to both of you, and I'll start with Phil. So you agree that she shouldn't have died? You think that was a good ending of her surviving at the end and becoming the star that she was destined to be?
Yes.
Okay. And
Oh, I mean, she's the final girl. She cannot die. I love how, you have an ex, you're a fucking sex symbol, and then you go to the end of MaXXXine full circle, you're a fucking movie star. That's the last line of the movie. I'm like, that's all I wanted from this, and it's amazing. So no, I think that anyone who wanted her to go down with her dad or to go down, I'm like, no, that's not what I wanted from this movie. I wanted MaXXXine on top, and she did not accept a life she didn't deserve, and she just fucking made it, and she's a movie star, and she's killing it, and that's exactly how I wanted this movie to end. And I knew that's how it would end because it's 80s cheese and it's awesomeness, and she's gonna go on to make a bunch of Puritan films, and she's gonna, be a horror icon. And that's how, I did not want her to die, so her success will never end.
It's funny, because I don't know if I was overthinking it when I was watching the end of this movie, but we have the scene of her with the sawed-off shotgun over her father, and she makes him say the line. And in that moment when they're saying, "I will not accept a life I do not deserve," I'm almost thinking she's saying it with him because she realizes that she's a bad person and she doesn't deserve to live. Because you have the helicopters telling her to drop the weapon, or they're going to shoot you.
By the way.
I was nervous too, and I was like, wait. And then they say the line, and I'm like, is she accepting her fate that she doesn't deserve to live because she's a bad person?
No, she deserves
I kind of was like, oh, that'd be interesting if they went with that angle. I mean, I do like how she becomes like the ultimate final girl, and she kind of sheds everything and just becomes this like movie star, but obviously has, this dark past. I mean, that's a really cool and unique, like you said before, she's a very unique final girl, especially in this movie. I mean, X is definitely more traditional in the sense in her arc, but this movie is super unique. So I do like the ending we got, but in that moment, I'm kind of saying to myself, does she deserve to live? I mean, they keep saying this line over and over. Maybe they're going to kill her. I thought maybe that would have fit thematically as well.
I mean, she never did harm to anyone who didn't deserve it, so I think she deserved to live.
We gotta keep an eye on you, Anthony, because your definition of deserving is maybe not the same as mine.
Time for a check-in.
I mean, Pearl earned that. I mean, the guy in the alleyway earned that. I mean, Kevin Bacon, he was a sleazeball, so he can go.
Yeah. Well, just the fact that she carries that weight because she moves to California, changes her name. Obviously the case is still open in Texas. They never get any resolution. So even just for the sake of her friends that died, I mean, she never went forward to the police and kind of,
no closure.
Just moved on. And like you said, Anthony, she's unapologetic about it. I mean, she's going to look out for herself.
That's what I love about her.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I'm like, again, I'm kind of on the fence because the more I'm talking about it, it's like that would almost justify the dad's existence in this movie, was to make her realize that, maybe she is a bad person and that she doesn't deserve this life, but I also don't really think I would have been satisfied if she like changed course, because we were on this freight train with MaXXXine, and it just makes sense for it to end the way it did. So yeah, I think I would agree that I did like the ending. Is there anything else you guys wanted to touch on before we wrapped it up?
I'm just curious to hear your scores.
Yeah. I have such a bad memory. So do you remember our scores, Anthony, for X?
I remember
Pearl?
mine. I know mine.
Oh,
I don't know your guys. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. That's fine. It's yeah. All right. Well, let's get into our never split up moments.
Okay. Uh-oh.
I won the poll, so I get to choose the order. Phil, are you ready to go? Do you want to go first and do the honors, or do you want me to hold off for you?
Hold off. Hold off.
I'll go first because I actually have a really unconventional one that I want to do, and I don't think you guys are going to take it. So I think it's fair if I go first. My never split up moment is going to be actually it's going to be MaXXXine. It's going to be the scene where she shows up to set and she gets scolded by Elizabeth Bender, or the director, and she tells her, I don't want an excuse like why you're late. Her friend just died, and she went to the police station to identify the bodies. MaXXXine should have said that. I think because in that moment, I was like, I cared about her role so much, and like her losing the role that I was just like screaming at the TV, like, MaXXXine, fucking tell this lady this is a good enough excuse. I know she said she doesn't want to hear it, but like, holy shit, like, can you tell this lady? Because I'm like terrified that she's gonna lose this role. So I'm gonna go with MaXXXine kind of not, standing up for herself and explaining to the director that
she wants to make it so bad,
her
man.
friend
She really
died.
wants to make it.
I mean, because she almost got fired. I mean, she has that whole monologue about how her time is valuable and time is the most precious thing we have. It's like, lady, like, if you only knew,
I love that one.
Whoever wants to go second, I'll let you guys decide between the two of you guys.
Yeah, Phil, you have a moment?
Yeah, I think so. So I God love Kevin Bacon, but I get it. His character is supposed to be over the top and sort of goofy, but like, come on, man. How do you let yourself be, conned that way? Like, just sort of like I get it. He's meant to be the the quote dumb, not bumbling cop, but like, the elevator maybe doesn't go all the way to the top floor, but like, come on, like you're really just going to walk basically right into your death kind of a thing. Like I was like, that was why in that whole scene, I kept thinking to myself, there's no way they're going to kill him. Like something is probably going to happen. Cause like, it just seems too kind of obvious. Like, okay, nope, it's happening. He's bye, Kevin. Like, that was one of those moments. Like, what, really? Like you just sort of walk, like, I'm not saying he willingly got himself tricked, but it just seemed a little too easy.
I knew where they were going with this character because he said like, "Oh, I'm the best in the business. I'm the best. Like, don't fuck with me." But yeah. I knew where they were going when he gets caught by the security when they're at the psycho house, and he can't even get himself out of that situation. And
legend in his own mind.
Yeah, exactly. He just gets escorted off the premise. He's like, "Okay, buddy, like let's go." So I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, well, Phil, you're an expert because that was my moment.
Nice.
There we go.
Yes, you did. But I'm gonna go with Leon, MaXXXine's best friend, because he sees the guy walk in the store. Obviously it's MaXXXine's dad, and then he's pretty much just like, I don't do that anymore. So I'm kind of insinuated that he used to like do sex favors for people who came in the shop or whatever, some sexual shit. But when he put the shop to close, he didn't check that the guy left, and once he flipped the sign, the guy was already in the store, and he started killing him. So maybe do a sweep of your shop before you lock up, or if you're uncomfortable to start out with, maybe make sure the guy walks out. Don't just not even look up at him and say, I don't do that anymore. So yeah, Leon kind of like led to his own death by not checking out the shop before he locked up. So I'm gonna go with that. He didn't really do anything to save himself.
It's really funny because we interpreted those scenes very differently. I didn't think he was talking to the dad. I thought he was talking to the little old man, and it was like a fake out. You thought he was talking to the dad.
No.
Because he escorts the one customer out. I thought that was the customer he was talking to, and then he switches the close sign. So, okay, that's interesting. So he knew the guy was in there, and he kind of locked up anyway.
Yeah, and he didn't even like follow through with him. I'm like,
I don't know.
Weird.
Yeah, that's I didn't take it like that, so that's funny. That's a good moment though, if that's the case. Yeah, that's funny.
So yeah.
Okay, cool.
Sloppy, very sloppy.
All right. As is the case with our initial thoughts, I want you two to go first on your scores, and then I'll kind of cap us off. So whoever wants to go first.
I'll let you.
Phil, let's hear your
Okay.
story.
Boy,
I'm nervous. That's why I want to hear it.
I am gonna.
Do you remember what would you give Pearl and X as a score? Just so we know.
So X is like a 8.5, maybe close to a 9, and I mean Pearl is. I mean, if I really just wanted to throw, if I wanted to throw caution to the wind, like that's a 10 out of 10. But like if I wanted to be, conservative, I'll say like 9.5 out of 10. But like Pearl is perfection as far as I'm concerned. But X is pretty darn close as well. God, I'm gonna say this is like a 5.5, maybe close to it, maybe close to a 6. If I really wanted to, if I wanted to be generous, maybe I could bump it to a 6. But yeah, I'm gonna say like a 5.5. I'm gonna hold firm on that one. Yeah. Maybe when I revisit it a third time, maybe we'll get it up to a 6. But we'll let me say this: it went up a little bit from when I saw it in the summer. So that maybe that's progress.
Okay. All right. Well, I gave X a 7.8 and I gave Pearl a 7.7. Again, I love these movies, but they're not all timers for me. I do see the little, quirky nitpicks I have in both of them. But I'm also going to give MaXXXine a 7.7 to tie it with Pearl. So then I'll leave you guys guessing to see how I rank it. But I think this overall, I see why people have problems with it. But I think just like X and Pearl set out to do with those time periods, I think that Ty West also delivered with this time period for better or worse, because the 80s is a sloppy time period of movies. And I think the movie is sloppy, but it is very entertaining. So yeah, I'm going to give it a 7.7 and tie it with Pearl.
Okay, very good. Very good. Okay, interesting. I thought it was going to be higher for you, Ant. I mean, you were kind of on defense a lot of the episode because, Phil was so low.
But I acknowledge it has problems.
Yeah. Okay. 5.5 and a 7.7. I mean, geez, that's I'm going to be in the middle, like I predicted. I think this movie is visually awesome. Like I said, I do think it's rewatchable. I'm going to have a fun time going back and watching some of these sequences. I think Ty West did an amazing job directing some of these set pieces and stuff. We didn't really talk about him and his actual directing enough really in this episode, but he's just a top-notch horror director, and he knows how to direct
absolutely
set pieces and kills. I wish we did get a little bit more kills. I know we had some gore and some violence. You have the alleyway scene, which I cringe every time. I mean, that's, oh my God, when she stomps on his, ugh. And then you have obviously the video store, which was my favorite part, my favorite kill, maybe in the whole franchise, like you said, and maybe in the whole trilogy.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have to really think about it, but that was really well done. But it does suffer. I will agree with Phil that the story is not great, and it kind of doesn't know what it wants to be. It's kind of aesthetically, it has an identity, but storytelling, it doesn't. So this is a tough one. So I gave X. We're gonna do our ranking in a minute, so I don't want to spoil it. But I'm gonna give MaXXXine a even 7 out of 10. I'm gonna give it a 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Okay, and then the little bonus content, I just touched on it. Let's do our rankings. So I'll go first since I let you guys go first for everything. I'll kick it off. I gave X a 7.6, I believe, and Pearl was higher in the 8s, I believe. I don't know if maybe it was in the 9s. I actually don't remember. I have to go back. But so Pearl is number 1 for me, X number 2, and MaXXXine 3. It just caught it. I was kind of going into this episode with an open mind, thinking maybe it could leapfrog X, but X just does. While I don't prefer the subgenre of X, it does, and it executes everything so beautifully that I can't knock it, and I have to give it a better score than something like MaXXXine that has so many flaws for what it's trying to do. So yeah, I'm going to go Pearl, X, and then MaXXXine. But all three great films. It's a good trilogy overall, and I'm really happy that it exists.
Okay, cool. I hate ranking this trilogy because they're all so different. So like every day I could be in the mood to watch like any of the three, and it'll be a different movie every day. But I guess how I feel right now and like rewatchability and everything, I adore all these three. They're not all timers, but I'm gonna go X is number 1, MaXXXine is number 2, and Pearl's number 3.
Okay, X, MaXXXine, Pearl. Okay, got it. Yep.
Yeah.
Phil?
Well, I'm going to co-sign your ranking, Nolan. I think we probably everyone can guess where I was heading based on my ranking or my rating for MaXXXine. But I will just say that because trilogies are a rarity, to quote Randy from Scream 3, they are rare in the horror genre. I am glad that these three films exist because, again, they don't come around that often. And major props to Ty West. I co-sign that point. You could do a whole episode just based on his direction alone. I think he's one of the best working in the genre today. He never misses in that sense. Like, you know what you're going to get, and he delivers his best effort. There's no half-ass measures, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm really excited to watch all three of these back to back one weekend or one day. I kind of want to watch them in release order and then maybe try chronological order and do Pearl first. I want to see, where
it goes.
You could kind of experiment, a little bit with it. So, because that was one of the points I brought up when we covered the first two movies. Is I do think Pearl benefited from being the second movie in the trilogy because it leaned on X, and I think if X was the second movie, it could have benefited from leaning on Pearl. So I do think it did kind of get an unfair, it kind of got the short end of the stick being the first movie in the trilogy with X. So yeah, I'm excited to go back and watch this trilogy. I think it was really well done in terms of stylistically. You get a little bit of everything. You get different genres thrown in. I mean, he just really had fun with this, and I know Mia Goth was involved with the whole process of creating the MaXXXine and the Pearl character. So kudos to them and to everyone. Kudos to the studios for getting these greenlit. I mean, what an achievement. And again, kudos to Ty West. And that was a fun episode, guys. Anything else you wanted to touch on before we wrap it up?
No, I'm excited for you guys to watch it back to back.
Yeah,
that is on the watch list. Yeah, I think that is
Have you
order.
done the 3 with Pearl, or you just did?
I have.
You have? Oh, that's cool. Okay, awesome, great. Okay, and that pretty much wraps up the episode. We will be back next week. We don't know what we're doing because, like always, we just kind of fly by the seat of our pants. But we will check back in with you guys next week. In the meantime, check out our social media at Never Split Up Podcast. Or I'm sorry, it's at Never Split Up Pod, at Never Split Up Pod, and that's when you'll find our polls. You can vote in our polls and you can interact with us. Follow us on YouTube. We're trying to get 200 subscribers by the end of the year. That's kind of our mini goal we've set out. So we're getting close. I believe we're around 179 last I checked. So we're getting close. So if you guys have a YouTube account, even if you don't watch us on YouTube, if you could subscribe to that, because as we get more subscribers, we unlock more features. YouTube kind of gatekeeps a lot of community features for some reason. So that would be awesome if we can reach our goal, and leave us comments on YouTube. And Phil, you want to just do a quick shout out of your channel again, real quick?
Yeah, again, well, thank you guys. As always, a great time talking with you, especially these films. So much appreciated. Again, appreciate any follow, subscribe to Phil at the Movies. All of the information will be in the show notes. But again, whether you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or watching on YouTube, just would appreciate a like and a follow for all the latest movie news and content.
Okay, and thanks again so much, Phil. We can't wait to have you on again in the future, and keep a lookout on his episode. You might be hearing some familiar voices on his episode come year end. Not to spoil anything, but stay tuned.
Can't confirm or deny.
Yeah. Stay tuned. Until next time, this is the Never Split Up podcast. Take care, guys. Bye.